The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine.
Hey, Church Planter, if you haven't checked out Logos Bible software yet, you need to check it out. It's going to help you look a lot less dumb than you actually are. It's going to make your sermon sing, and it's going to make your homilies roar. That was the best I could do. I'm sorry. But go to logosbiblesoftware.com and check it out. You'll be glad you did.
I guess so.
I guess we need that copy, don't we?
You know, you were trying. I'll give you that, man. You definitely, you were giving it all you had.
You know, all I could hear was, where they said, Jack, you made our skin crawl. You made our boils ooze, in Jack Skellington. I was thinking that, and I just couldn't pull it off for the Logos Bible software.
So I want you to ask me what I get Jamie for Valentine's Day.
Ooh. Well, Pete, let me just say formally, officially, on behalf of my half of the Church Planter Podcast, happy Valentine's Day. Never going to feel right saying that to another dude, ever. No. But, just because it makes you feel uncomfortable, happy Valentine's Day.
Ask me what I got her.
What'd you get Jamie?
A vacuum cleaner.
Whoa, man, nothing says a magic tide like a vacuum cleaner for Valentine's Day or a TV in the bedroom.
I just said, hey, honey, I don't think these carpets are as clean as they could be. Let me get you a vacuum cleaner for Valentine's Day. Oh, vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaner. That sounds like a safe word. Vacuum cleaner.
Oklahoma. So, okay, you ready? I'm going to jump in.
I'm leaving all that in there.
What?
Vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaner. Oklahoma.
So was this a present that Jamie was like, Pete, what I'd really like for Valentine's Day, or were you like, woman, this house is dirty. If you love me, you'll vacuum here.
Which do you think it was?
Oh, Jamie asked for it all the way.
There is no way my wife was like, hey, can you please get me a vacuum cleaner? No, this took some doing on my part. I needed to tell her how it was. I need her to understand. Woman,
now, Pete,
clean up my carpet. Friend.
And because it's Valentine's Day, I'll say, I love you. I want you to stay married.
Why?
Friends can't let friends get back. You should have talked to me before today. I could have helped you. I could have said, dude, like a spa gift certificate for your wife, because that's why I got Andrea, and she won't hear this till Monday, so I haven't blown it or anything.
Wait, you got her a spa gift certificate?
Yeah, dude, so she can go and, get spa'd.
Yeah, you know what? That stuff never turns out the way it's supposed to turn out.
Why?
I'm just saying.
Oh, because they go in there and they go, don't you want a membership? And they go, yeah, for $200 more, I got a year's worth. Wait.
Let me just say, I did the massage envy for Jamie, last year, because you have to sign up for a year. And let me just say, I didn't get rewarded the way I thought I was going to get rewarded. And I'm not making that financial mistake again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you had to go for the full spa to get what you wanted. I don't think massage.
I'm pretty sure it's not going to matter.
Buying shoes from Payless. No. I'm not trying to cast shade on massage envy. It's like when you eat a hamburger at McDonald's. It's good. It's got that McDonald's quality, but it ain't no In-N-Out or Five Guys. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a real hamburger.
I don't know. So what is today's episode all about?
So today's topic is, well, the title, I've already named it. I don't often name our podcast. I normally just give it a title and you do the one about.
I name it. I call it, this one's Fred. That one's Janet. Huh?
Yeah. So it would be funny if we gave each one a child name, because dude, we'd be up to like 300 and something baby names. We'd have to come up.
We'd be like Harvey. Who names their kid Harvey?
Dude, we'd be like the Mormon God, like populating his planet of Kolob, running out of baby names, 300. We would, like, no parent except for like the Mormon God has to come up with that many names. You know what I mean?
No, I got baby book. Why you need the Mormon God? Why you got to bring him into this? Huh? Why you got to bring him into this Christian podcast?
Dude, just for the record, I know I've mentioned this before, but I read the Book of Mormon cover to cover. Most boring read ever. And it came to pass. When every sentence starts, and it came to pass, you pretty much, it's made up. But anyways, here's the deal. Today's title is the one about we missed episode 300. Because we missed it. Somehow we just rolled right into episode 300.
It wasn't somehow. I told you how we missed it.
Oh, yeah, I was away.
Yeah. Yeah, you're here, why don't you just play them a couple of my sermons? That'll keep our listeners happy. They just like to listen to me anyway. Oh, and here, why don't you do an episode with Bo? Bo's a great guy and all, but why you get vacation and I don't? That didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, no. You taking time off? I'm taking time off.
Vacation is a lot like money. You got to take it. Oh, wait, that came out wrong. No one's just going to give you vacation. You got to take the vacation. Just take it. Do you mean like you had to post them and stuff? Like you had to like work the controls?
You really have no idea how the podcast gets done.
I can't argue with that. That is no doubt true.
I know it's true.
It's becoming glaringly obvious as I'm planning to do a two podcasts, which one is a Bible podcast and the other one just being a general ministry podcast. You're right. I literally have no clue. Hey, dude, I actually am getting ready to watch a YouTube video on how to run a podcast, and I've only been at this for 6 years. But it's kind of evident you've been running the podcast. I just show up and talk, baby.
Tap your mic. Tap it. Tap, tap, tap.
What's that mean? Why am I doing this?
No, because you were like, the sound wasn't good, and I was not sure if it was that mic that was working.
Oh, is it not good still? I think someone messed with it yesterday.
Yeah,
someone
I'd say so. You're not usually that, like you're blowing out.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. That's better.
Okay. All right. Is that better?
That's much better.
Oh, wow. Okay. Have I been blown out the whole time?
Yeah, but not like really bad, just enough to annoy me. Maybe that's because I was listening to your voice. Yeah. Get it? That annoys me.
We're actually in here setting up a couple different microphones in my office, and I think the gremlins mess with things.
Do you know how this morning I had one of the greatest breakfasts you can have. I had eggs and bacon.
Oh.
And I cooked the eggs in the bacon juice. I mean, it was like,
whoa,
heart attack on a plate. Awesome breakfast.
Only if you do it every once in a while, it's okay. So you can.
How I asked the wife to pass me the salt and pepper?
Huh.
I go, just push it. And she hands me the salt and pepper.
Nice.
Get it?
See there. That was pretty good. Yeah.
Only on Valentine's Day, baby. Just push it. Here's the salt and pepper. I know that's what you're after.
You save those up for special occasions like today.
I'm telling you.
You get my best jokes. So I did something kind of cool. I was proud of. So I got daughters, right? So I'm trying to let them know that, hey, when a dude loves you, like he's gonna be romantic. He's gonna keep the romance alive. He's gonna do like, little things. So I got a little girl. I never had a sister, and I can say this now because my mom's gone to glory, but she had a hysterectomy when I was 3. So I did not get women's emotions growing up at all. Right. When I got married and my wife got emotional about something, I was like, what? I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. Like, no disrespect to my wife, because she's sane when she's emotional. But it was kind of like, what? I don't have a box of, like, what's happening? I don't have a box to put this in. And so, it's funny, man, because I got daughters now. And being married and having daughters, kind of like God going, okay, little late, late bloomer here, but you got to learn this stuff. This is important. So I'm trying to learn like the female emotions and stuff. So we're in Starbucks, maybe about 5 weeks ago, and I do a daddy-daughter date with Liberty. She's 10, and it means a lot to her. It's actually my favorite time of the week is taking her out. Because if you guys don't do this with your daughters, I'll tell you what, like, my daughter comes home, how's your day? It was good, blah, 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 it was good. How was cheer practice? It was good. I take her out on my daddy-daughter day, and yada, 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 chatterbox. And I feel like I really get to know her, which is kind of cool, right? It does somehow, just spending that time with her, it changes things. So anyways, a couple weeks ago, we're out, maybe about 4 or 5, and she sees this Starbucks water bottle. Now, she has to take a water bottle to school. It's like a rule, right? Like, I guess they got to keep kids hydrated nowadays. So she has to take this water bottle. So she sees this water bottle, and she goes nuts for it. And I'm like, oh, no, but who liked that is Mommy. Maybe I get it from Mommy. And it had like little hearts on it for Valentine's Day. And it was a fair play. If you're a girl, it was really cool. So I bought it for her and I hit it. Anyways, on the way to school today on our daddy-daughter date, which happens to be Thursdays, I busted it out. And just her being as excited as she was about it, it cost like $16. It wasn't like a huge investment. But the fact that I had bought it all that time ago and told her, hey, I've had that hidden away. And it was just kind of a cool moment. I mean, it was just kind of cool. And so, man, here's the thing. When you have daughters, you kind of, that one day another dude is going to take her and he's going to take care of her. And you're the dad. You're taking care of her. I mean, it's not the same. He's going to be like her lover and all that, totally different dynamics. But that aspect of I take care of you now, one day another dude's going to take care of you is kind of a cool deal, Kind of neat, man.
I'm sorry, I tuned you out about 5 minutes ago. What were you talking about?
It's all right. Something that would have changed your life. Sure.
I keep telling Jamie that Mackenzie is much more like me than Luke is. And I am confident that Mackenzie is going to be the gunslinger.
That's rad. I don't doubt you on that. Knowing Mackenzie, seeing that look she can give.
Oh, yeah.
I doubt you on that. Luke, he'd be like, Harry Jesus or whatever, Jesus steak, whatever it was when I turn up. And, hey, Pastor Peyton, blah, 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 all about the superheroes and the G.I. Joes and whatever. Mackenzie just gives you this hard stare like, yeah, I got you sussed out, pal. Don't you try anything.
She gives that look like, I'm packing. Just move. Just go ahead and reach for it.
Yeah, I think her Valentine's Day style would be something like, just slip the envelope under the door in the morning. And
she's totally the girly girl. I mean, she's just like Jamie. She's the girly girl. She's all about, the outfits and all that. But she's the one who's like Luke to this day is afraid to swim. And Jamie doesn't know how to swim, right? An adult. And she's like, oh no, the water's deep. I'm like, dude, are you serious? I'm going to throw you in the deep end. This is like ridiculous. Mackenzie is like, don't touch me. What
happens in your house? Like you threaten Jamie to throw her in the deep end if she didn't behave?
When we're on vacation.
We're going to Sizzler, but I don't want to go to deep end. We're going to Sizzler. You follow me?
Dude, that was so
Look in
funny,
my eyes.
Man.
The
other day, Peyton comes to me and he says, hey, I think we got a deal here. It might be worth X amount of dollars. It's half for you, half for me. What do you think about that? And what was my reply?
I don't remember.
I'm going to the Sizzler tonight. Woo!
If you guys are listening, Sizzler is kind of a joke with our generation. Some of you young people don't know what Sizzler means. It's a restaurant. It's out there. You've probably driven past it, didn't notice it.
Sizzler.
I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of money. Sizzler.
And what was your comment to me? Was something along the lines of, oh man, how did you word it? You were like, you can have you're going to do the salad bar plus a meal or something like that. Like,
yeah, you're going to get the steak and the salad bar.
If you only went to Sizzler, you would understand how funny that is.
Indeed. All you can eat salad bar, let me add. They were the first one to do that.
Oh yeah, that was like their claim to fame.
And then wasn't it like Shakey's did it next? And then like people
Shakey's
started
is
following
a pizza
suit.
joint, and all I know is
dude.
I went there. It's nasty.
Dude, Olive Garden. Do you remember when Olive Garden was like the hotness? Like people are like, I could just get soup and salad, all you can eat, and breadsticks, unlimited breadsticks. It was like, you know, the I forgot the name of it. Olive Garden. Oh my gosh, dude, that was the hotness. Like people would cater Olive Garden to events, and like you're like, yeah, my grandma likes Olive Garden, you know, like tastes like cardboard. But people don't know, man. Back in the day, like those places, we had it bad growing up, dude. We didn't have good places.
Did we?
We did. It's not like today. It's not like all the hipsters are like, yeah, you know, I got some, you know, slowly braised venison with a little bit of pickled onion and blackberry jumet. I just made a word up because I don't know. I don't understand half of those culinary words nowadays. But yeah, man, it wasn't like it is today.
Where do you go to eat today? Like, what's your go-to place?
I got a couple places. So my absolute favorite Mexican is a place called Lucha Libre, which is you go in, it's all like these luchadors all over. It's like obscenely obnoxious. I actually took a friend there once who got scared. And they said, this is too much like a nightclub. I can't eat here. So, but it's amazing food. And you got to tip well to get a good burrito. So you tip when you have them make your burrito. Fish is Fish 101 down in Encinitas. Crab cooker when I'm in Orange County, because that's amazing. Do you mean like chains?
No, I just was curious what your go-to place was.
Yeah, those are the places I like. My daughter, she's 10. Her favorite's Benihana, so every birthday we're at Benihana's for her.
Yeah, you know, I kind of wonder. Benihana, is that Japanese?
Yeah, it was, again, another thing that was big in the 80s, but
you see, I kind of wonder, do you think in Japan they've got like a Benihana's over there, but with American food and guys just sitting around in lounge chairs?
I just heard that joke. I think you sent me that. You sent me that meme where he's like, yeah, I wonder if they got some guys cooking out, you know, tailgate parties, you know, cooking out on the grill, making hamburgers and hot dogs.
I think that would be a great restaurant in Japan.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah, man. So they got a Denny's in Wales now. And people are like, oh, yeah, we finally got a Denny's here. And they're like, it's not very good. And I'm like, you guys, that's kind of the point. It's open 24 hours. It's the only reason people go there. Like, Denny's sucks. It's supposed to suck. Like, you're not supposed to have good food at Denny's. If you're going there for the food, you're going for the wrong reason.
Is it open 24 hours over there?
Yes. Well, keep in mind it's a binge drinking culture. So Wednesday nights, now Thursday, Friday, and stuff. 4 nights a week, it's all night partying going on downtown.
Interesting.
Oh, it's crazy, dude. When I first went there, it was Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday night, and then it extended to four nights straight. It's like New York, man. It's all night party, but binge drinking is huge there. Like staying out, like they started opening like 1 hour motels downtown in the city that I planted in, where it was like, yeah, we know you're hooking up, one night stand. So, and it's heartbreaking, dude.
So it's LA.
What?
It's LA is what you're saying.
And I'm telling you what, dude, it's like they started a ministry there called Street Pastors.
We had
one of the guys from our church.
Guy on.
What's that?
Years ago, we had your guy on who talked about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Nigel?
That's right.
Was that his name?
Yeah, well, we did have Nigel. Yeah, that was the early days. Nigel ended up taking over for Andy Bell, who he was a guy we kind of helped bring it there. It started in Manchester and London, and we brought it to Swansea, and it was rad, dude. It still goes on, and those guys share the gospel, man. It's awesome. But they keep people from being raped, help people that have been drugged get home. It's crazy. Keep people from. It's insane, dude. It's like the Wild West out there.
I think one of the things that impressed me the most, or not impressed me, but made an impression on me, is when he was telling us a story. He's like, we're out there, we're doing this, we're thinking, hey, we're really going to help these people. The gals who are so drunk they can't even walk, they're getting raped, and we're stopping that. But the biggest impact they had was on the bartenders and the bouncers.
Yeah.
The guys who were sober, basically.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, we'll help you clean up all this vomit. We got you covered.
It's an absolute staple now of the community. It's one of those areas where Christianity has made a dent, and it has been a positive in a post-Christian society. It has been a positive influence where the guys are out serving, and people are like, why are you doing this? Like, what? Like, they can't believe that there's a group of people that just stay out there, and they have like police looking jackets, it says street pastor on the back, and they're just there, and they're there to serve, and they just, it's amazing, man. So they get amazing gospel conversations. They're not out there to proselytize directly, but people come up and talk to them every single night that they're out there.
Sure.
I want to talk, like, why are you doing that? It's amazing, dude. It's super cool. But hey, we're supposed to be talking about we missed episode 100.
300. We were here for episode 100.
Yeah. I guess it's easy to see now how we miss an episode.
I have no idea where to take that. Well,
I mean, obviously I can't remember what episode. 300. It's been 6 years. Come next month. It's been a long haul for us, Pete. Lots has happened, and I don't know how to really take this episode. Do we do like what happened between 200 and 300, or do we just talk about the entire show? Is it kind of like we get to open up the whole treasure trove, or Pandora's box, however you see it, of what's happened over the last 300 episodes?
So, are we talking about our favorite moments from the show?
Pretty much.
My favorite moment. Uh-oh.
Which was last week, actually.
I know.
I have the best screenshot of you. Busted, you're laughing so hard. You've got like your head down on your face palming yourself, basically, with your elbow on the table. You're practically crying. You're laughing so hard.
Dude, I was crying. And then right then Skype cuts out. And I was like, oh man, that was like the funniest story. And because it was the internal struggle of, can I share this on the Church Planner podcast or not? That was my internal struggle.
Which usually the answer is no. When in doubt, probably good to hold off unless you want to edit this episode. But in that case, I thought you were okay. I thought you were good.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I thought it was too. I'll never forget a lot of the subtext to be read in by the listener. And that's what made it okay.
I never will. No, I lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Don't worry. It wasn't important.
It wasn't.
What have been some of your favorite moments on the show?
My all-time favorite is always, and it's my sense of humor, and I know it doesn't.
Please be Phil Yancey.
It was Philip Yancey.
Phil Yancey? Philip.
Dropping into the phone call, as we did in those early days where we had this conference call set up, and we drop in, and I come into the call because it says, about to join call, and then it tells you have now been added to the call. So it feels like you're on a drop ship getting ready to drop down into alien infested battles. To me, this is in my head, if you're in my head, and I go, woo! Like I picture myself like, landing on the battlefield, everybody's waiting. It tells me there's other people waiting in the call, and there's just like stunned silence. And I'm like, hello, is anyone here? And Philip's like, this is Philip. And he just was not pleased. I mean, you could just that's my all-time favorite. Philip Yancey, man. Just him going, what in the heck have I
You
What's that?
insisted on calling him Phil. And he
I
kept
didn't
correcting
know.
you. He's like, Philip. Yeah,
Oh,
sure,
he
Phil.
was-
Philip.
Oh, he kept saying, my friends call me Philip, and sorry, I was trying to be cool about it, but he was clearly irritated. Like
I was waiting for you to start going, hey, P-Dog. Hey, P-Dog. What about when the suffering is really bad, P-Dog?
The thing is, I love Philip Yancey's writing, and I actually like him. I did feel kind of bad for him, like. This is me kind of turning on the human side here for a second, because there's the punk side that just kind of says, like, that's funny. It was almost as good as the time that I made Lou Ferrigno mad, the guy that played the Incredible Hulk, because you make Lou Ferrigno angry. Like, you can make him sad, you can make him laugh. That's not as good as making him angry. I don't quite feel that way with Phil. I had another cool moment with Phil, a totally separate occasion. But on that call, it was like, it's probably best you don't really know who I am after this phone call. Maybe it's good you never think of me ever again. But I did kind of feel sorry for him, because it was like he dropped into this call and he's probably thinking, I'm Philip Stinkin' Yancey. What am I doing with these two knuckleheads? And I'm sorry, I just thought that was kind of funny.
I love you, man.
Yeah. So my favorite moment, I have a lot of moments I'm not proud of on this podcast.
I want to hear about those because they probably got cut.
I just remember a friend of mine once saying, people can learn best from you if they respect you. Well, we know that ship sailed a long time ago. No, it's funny because I always think there's this sense and I always go back and forth on this. There is a sense in which you as a leader, on one hand, you have a certain degree of, I don't know how to put it, like credibility, but then there's familiarity as well. Jesus had that balance, right? Where he was very familiar with the 12, and yet there was still a level of respect. And when the guy said it to me, I kind of took it as kind of like old school leadership, where like you were the pastor, and you and I've talked about this because you're the son of a pastor, and you've grown up in that, the truth, right? Like, I mean, your dad's rad, but I like your dad a lot. But he's a human being. And for me, there's something about when I went to Wales, it was no longer, I'm this like persona, I'm this avatar up on stage. I am this public figure. It was, I'll never forget going to Wales, and they said, oh man, they eat their pastors for breakfast here. And part of the Celtic mindset, particularly in a working class, former coal mining country where, men just worked hard and died young. There was they said, look, there's no putting on airs here. This is working class. This is an industrial society. And you don't get to be the hero. I'm telling you, if you're going to join ministry here, get used to a lot of hardship. Get used to people. You're not going to have the respect you had in America. That's what my mentor told me. And I got to be honest, going into ministry at like 19, 20 years old, and feeling this crushing weight of leading a megachurch at the age of 20. Gosh, I was assistant at 21, interim pastor at 22. That was a lot of weight, man. And it was very freeing to me to go, oh, well, cool. You guys are going to, like, I'm 25, I'm at Lloyd Jones's church. Cool. Just let me be a normal dude. Finally, I find that freeing. So I went to work in a factory, and, it was, I don't know how to put it, man, but that prepped me, I think, for that ministry of authenticity that says, hey, I'm just a dude. Like, the Holy Spirit's power is real and he will fill you, but let's not pretend anymore. Like, that's kind of the problem, is we've had guys saying big things on stage for years. Next minute you read about them in the paper, some scandal, and they've been sleeping with prostitutes. And that's been like the repeated Just this week, another mega pastor, kind of had a fall. And if you play sound bites, there are very bold things, and there are very sometimes seemingly arrogant things. And there's this persona, I am the grand master. And I know the next generation doesn't buy it. And so I've struggled at times, like, what's the balance? I don't have Jesus's balance. But like I said, I'll look back sometimes, should I said that or should I not have said that? And there's a difference between being real and sometimes going, yeah, that was just a stupid thing to say.
Yeah. It's a tough mix, man. It's a tough road to go down, to keep that.
It is. And yet at the same time, right? Like, you look at Paul, and Paul says some things that God allows in Galatians. We see him lose his temper with the high priest, and then he says about the circumcision group, I wish they'd just emasculate themselves completely. He's talking about circumcision. He's like, I just wish they would move the knife up and cut the whole thing off. That's what he's saying. And whether the if what he's getting at is that they can't reproduce or that they would die or whatever, you're like, okay, that's too far, Paul. And yet it's in there. Paul, his raw emotion is coming through in the book of Galatians. Never forget watching the documentary on Lenny Kravitz. And they were talking about the album where It's Not Over Till It's Over, his second album. And this girl, his sister-in-law, is on there going, he's breaking his heart on that album. And that's how I always feel about Paul in Galatians, is the dude's heart is breaking, right? And all the raw, unbridled emotion of a human being is just coming through Paul. And he's saying things and putting things on paper that people probably would have been like, Paul, scratch that out, get the white out, don't put that in there. And yet the Holy Spirit allows that stuff to be written. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of cool. And then you go, okay. And I don't disrespect Paul anymore. I just see his humanity, and that actually encourages me. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I look back on our 300 plus episodes sometimes and go, yeah, I wish I hadn't said that. There's been a couple times like, Pete, you got to take that out.
Couple of times. I finally told you, I'm not fixing it. You want to do it, you got to cut it and give it back to me, and I'll upload it.
Yeah, it was funner when you would just fix stuff. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, I had to think about what I said a lot less.
Yeah, I'm not your employee. That's how this works.
Dang, I need a new employee then.
Yeah, but I mean, and I think too, kind of what you're bringing up reminds me of, man, I got to be careful how I say this. Talk about be careful what you say. It reminds me of stuff that's come up this last week, and I don't remember who it was. I remember one of the conversations I was having with a buddy of mine, but we've had a lot of right now in America, politics are just out of control. Both sides. I don't. It's just.
Oh my gosh, dude!
It's unbelievable, right? And so the Virginian governor, is in trouble because he has a picture in his college yearbook of when he's in blackface, and everyone is like, "Oh, he needs to resign. He needs to resign." And I just kind of feel like I am not a Democrat. Like, he's a Democrat. I am so not a Democrat.
Oh, that dude's a Democrat?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's a Democrat, and
I assumed he was a Republican because he did a stupid blackface thing.
No, he's a Democrat, and ironically, with CNN, they started listening to him as a Republican on TV.
Are you serious?
Yes.
See, it just shows that
so
kind of
fake
prejudice.
news.
I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but shoot, man, that just.
But here's
I made the same mistake.
Here's my thing though. Is I look at that and I go, look, I'm not a Democrat. I'm so conservative. I'm not a Republican. And I look at that and I'm like, there has to be some level of grace in our society where we go, look, you did this when you were young, stupid, and it was culturally acceptable. Not saying it was right, But I'm saying we're now going to crucify some guy because of something he did decades ago. And it's like, where's our grace as a society? Where's our grace where we just go, look, man, okay, I get it was a different time. I get that it was socially acceptable, even though it hurt a lot of people and shouldn't have been done. But let's have some grace for the guy.
Well, I think it depends on how you.
And I'm so not a Democrat. And I'm saying that, right?
No, I get you. I think it depends on how you. We've talked about this. It depends on how you handle this stuff. Like when you make a mistake, you have to really apologize sincerely, and people are more forgiving if there's genuine repentance. I think first he apologized and he came out. I think it was worse that he came out and said, oh, actually, that's not even me in the picture. Right. I don't remember, Then, like I think just a heartfelt, hey, guys, I was wrong. I was stupid. I don't know what possessed me. I would never do that today. Back then, I mean, culture has moved on. We used to do that stuff. It was stupid. It was the 70s or 80s or whatever. But, and things have changed socially. But it's funny because I sat with my nephew who's African American. I have a lot of African Americans in my extended family. And I sat and talked with him and we were talking it through. And he said, no, I don't think he ought to be fired. It was, it was years ago and he's African American. But he said, but I think the conversation is very healthy, for us to be having about this. But, he asked me what I thought. And I said, the thing is, though, dude, like, I know culture's changed, but that even way back then, I would have been like, I ain't doing that. And I go, maybe it's because of how I was raised. Like, my mom would have shot me if I had done that, because the household I grew up in, my mom had two words that you cannot say, the F word and the N word. And we were like the Osbournes, dude, but the F word was too far and the N word was too far. Like, my mom told me, she sat me down once when I was young and she said, you use the N word. That's like the F word. It gets the same punishment. And my mom was rad. I mean, she was totally like, she lost friends. She came from the South and she literally lost friends. A bit like that movie, The Help, for embracing African-American people in her home. And she was like, hey, screw you. I'm willing to lose you as a friend. You're not the kind of friend I want to have then. And she went on to be an ESL teacher and yada, yada. But I think for me, like, as I'm reflecting, I'm like, I would have known back then, like, that's not cool. Don't do that. And again, maybe it was how I was raised. I also love history. I understood a lot about history. My grandfather's a Civil War author. So these things have always been kind of talked about in my family, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree that how you deal with it on a personal level really helps determine how people should, handle it on the other side. But I just think that unfortunately in our society today, we have no grace for anyone.
Yeah.
We're not willing to.
We're witch hunters. I mean, human nature is witch hunters. I mean, it didn't matter if during the McCarthy era, it was communism. Now it's Trump supporters.
Who knew McCarthy was right? Sorry, go on.
No, but it doesn't matter. Like, what the era is, we always do witch hunts. Every age has always done witch hunts. It will always be something. It's kind of like where Jesus said, you always have the poor. We talk tolerance in our society, but there's a witch hunt after intolerance. As soon as they talk tolerance, they will witch hunt after anyone who is deemed intolerant. And so you're never going to have the absence of witch hunts, because whatever is deemed to be socially acceptable, whatever deviates from that will be persecuted.
Yeah.
I mean, it just changes. The flavor changes all the time, but human nature stays the same.
The reality is I don't think that that Trump started all of this. I think he's a symptom of a society that's already gone that direction.
Correct.
And that to me is part of the problem that we've got is because now we have like the top job in the world, right? You're the leader of the free world. I know everyone outside of America doesn't understand that when we say that, but that's all right. Back-to-back World War champs over here. That's all I got to say on that. But,
that's funny.
But now that we've got him up there being just this unbelievable, intolerant, ungraceful jackass, which is what he is being, it has set the tone that this is now acceptable to be that way. So now we see the new crop of congressional members coming in, and they are just as intolerant. They are just as crass. They are just as cruel. And they just go, oh, well, we blame it. You know, if he can do it, so can we. And it's the degradation of our society.
Correct. So Obama, love him, hate him, agree with him, disagree with him. He kept it classy. I'm not saying he did stuff that was right.
Classy,
like
San Diego.
He was equally as dirty.
Come on,
in the way he fought.
Ron Burgundy. Keep it classy.
He was a
San Diego.
dirty. I mean, he was probably the dirtiest fighter I've ever seen, but he kept that classy veneer. With Trump came in just swinging. Like, do you remember when he went after who was the guy? Rand Paul. Do you remember when he went after Rand Paul and he started like poking fun of his hair and stuff and his appearance?
No, but that wouldn't surprise me.
He's like, he goes, I mean, I could make fun of his appearance. He's doing this in a debate. And he goes, I mean, look at him. I got a lot of material. And like, nobody's ever said anything like that in a public debate, nor should they. Right. The fact is, Trump has his childishness has brought politics down to a level where now if you need to fight with him, you have to get equally as childish. So Pelosi's clap during the thing, childish, completely childish.
I didn't see
if you're reading through her reports behind him, now he's childish. And if anything, I think people around him are telling him, dude, grow up, like start acting like the world leader.
I don't think anyone around him is saying that because they know they will lose their job.
You can see a change in him though. And I have definitely seen.
What are you talking about? There's no change in him.
Well, in the recent State of the Union address, there was a marked. Now, I'm not a Trump fan. Don't get me wrong here, but there was a marked. I was actually a little bit shocked by some of the humility that he displayed in that speech a couple times. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like him. He must have people, either that or he's just, like I'm thinking like maybe his daughter or people like that kind of have come out saying, yeah, he does stupid things. But here's the thing is that what we're seeing now is we're not seeing anything. They've always been childish. They just had a veneer of professionalism, and that's eroding now in our politics. We're now starting to see how petty people really are coming through in politics. They've always been petty, and they've always been childish, just like you and just like me. But now you're seeing it come through. So what's happening in our society is, and I believe a lot of it's the reality TV stuff, that people are just, they're seeing constant freakouts, constant meltdowns, and it's just becoming normal now. It's not even something that you're ashamed of anymore. You just hang it all out there, which also is stupid. I mean, Proverbs, going back to our earlier conversation, Proverbs says a fool speaks everything that's in his heart. That's why sometimes I look back on some of our stuff and think, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But a fool speaks everything that's in his heart. So you're not supposed to, like I said, there's a difference between being authentic and sharing, hey, I'm real. And I think these thoughts, and sometimes just being stupid.
Yeah. No, I don't even know how we got off on that tangent, but
this is supposed to be the funny episode about all of our greatest moments. I mean, Pete, we've gone through everything with you. We've gone through your underwear. That didn't sound right. We've gone for like many joy rides in your Charger, and we've been on the range getting targeted by gun talk, like, umpteen times. I mean, we have many, I still think one of the best moments was when I invented the Ninja range. where you hop around like a ninja and go across rope bridges and throw rubber stars and shoot rubber bows and arrows at people and have samurai sword fights. I still think that's a winner of an idea that in my mind, I'll be a millionaire forever in my mind off that one. But,
So we had this couple over our house a couple of weeks back, and they've got a daughter that's she's on the spectrum with autism. And I honestly wouldn't have known it had they not said it. And then I was like, oh, okay, now things make more sense.
Sure.
She goes to, regular school, but I mean, she's different. And, so, they know that I'm into guns, and they were just like, yeah, you got a daughter on the spectrum. We don't have any guns in our house at all. I'm like, totally get it. Right. I mean, makes sense. And, they go, but I don't remember who it was. It was like a cousin or something is like really into guns as well. And so their kids are like, I think they said they were like 11 and 10, and they get invited with our friends' kids to go to a Taekwondo dojo. Like for a birthday party, they were going to do like a, Taekwondo thing.
Yeah. And
they go there, and the kids that come from the gun family are like looking at everyone doing Taekwondo. And this 11-year-old kid looks at his brother and goes, so that's what people without guns do. Oh my gosh, dude. They had to share that with me, and I was just dying when I heard that one.
That's funny.
So that's what people
Except that 11-year-old kid doesn't have a gun when he's walking around. He's going to get his butt beat.
Yeah, but it's still funny. Come on.
It is funny.
That's
I
funny.
do got to say that's funny.
Yeah,
Man, I never knew karate growing up. In the 80s, we're all about knowing karate. We had the ninja shows, a Karate Kid. I didn't know any of that stuff. But we still tried, man. We still like ran around the playground and karate kicked each other all the time.
One of my favorite talks on the podcast is when I had just taken a test drive in the Charger. And I'm like, yeah, it's a V8 and blah, blah, blah. And oh man, the gurgle on the car, and I'm going off. And you go, what kind of gas mileage does that car get? And I'm all, who cares?
You don't ask that question.
If you're buying a Charger, you're not buying it for the gas mileage. This isn't a Prius. I mean,
That's
it's a
hilarious.
Charger. But it was just, to me, it was a perfect example of the two differences in us. You are thinking of the future, being the wise car shopper.
I remember the time where I think I might have tempted. I think you were close to buying me a Charger at one point.
Well, I got to tell you, they are so cheap. If things weren't playing out the way they're probably playing out for the podcast and magazine, I'd consider buying you a Charger. Absolutely.
Hey. I have to go rethink my life right now.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
it's been fun, man. I mean, we've made fun of a lot of our calling guests. We've called a dude in the field, which we've talked about this on episode 200. That was the early day,
Yeah.
I'll never forget meeting Michael Cheshire. We drove out and we met him back in the early days of the podcast. I was a huge fan of How to Knock Over a 7-Eleven. And he had a medical condition, but he had a really big belly. I can't remember what medicine he was on. He's like, yeah, dude, it makes me put on weight. But one of my favorite things ever, because it was just so him. Dude's got a funny sense of humor, but with his big, giant belly, which did kind of like, he was making fun of it. He's like, look, I look like a pregnant woman. We're standing in the yard house up at the host. I've never told this story. And up at the hostess's desk, waiting to get seated. And I feel this like something pushing on me. And all of a sudden I'm being pushed into the hostess stand, which in the yard house is pretty solid. And I'm getting like crushed. And I turn around, and it's Michael Cheshire, and he's just like pushing his belly into me so hard. He's like wedging me in between the thing. He's trying to squish me. It was like being in the trash compactor.
Dude, that was
so
kind of
cool.
funny.
That was pretty funny. And I looked at him. He's just giving me this funny look, like, because the dude's huge. Like, and I don't mean like weight-wise. I mean, he's tall. Like,
no,
that
he's
dude
a
was
big
big.
guy. He's a big guy. He was on some medication, and they couldn't let him lose all of the water so quick.
That's right.
So they did like all these medical tests, and he was supposedly, I mean, I don't know, but
he was swollen. Like, you could see, like, his body was
incredibly healthy, except for the size, but they couldn't let him like lose all of that water so quickly. They're like, that'll be way too bad for your body. So we need you to lose this water slowly.
Yeah.
So,
oh, dude, it was rad. That was a pretty funny moment, I gotta say.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a funny moment. He was funny when we interviewed him in that restaurant, and all the plates are clanging. And I mean,
that was kind of cool. I like that. I actually thought, man, this is a cool way to do an interview, like in a public spot, you know?
Yeah, that was like episode 16 or 17. It was way up at the beginning, because we had talked about him on every episode. Almost like we talked about him on every one, and then we meet him, interview him, and then we're like, okay, that's it. On to the next one.
Well, he was going through a rough time in those times.
Well,
I don't know if we really saw him at his best, but
he was only starting to go through the rough time back then.
Yeah, we didn't know, and he told us afterwards. We're like, oh, okay. But you know, it's funny, man, because gosh, like we were doing a themed issue on Mars Hill right when it blew apart, and I remember at that time being like, this is weird. Why is there this like kind of guardedness? Like, what's? I had no idea. Like, Mars about to blow apart. I do it on X-29, and man, I mean, you know, it's
you were breaking
it's
up
been
there,
quite
so we missed all of what you just said.
Oh, maybe it was best that I didn't say. I was just talking about we did the X-29 themed issue. We didn't know it was going to blow. Like, it blew up that month. Remember that?
I didn't know X-29 blew up.
Well, you know, like the Mars Hill thing blew up, you know, and I remember at the time going, what's going on? You know, like that something's not right, you know? And, but man, there's, I mean, 6 years, Pete, 6 years.
Has it really been that long? Are you sure? Yeah,
we started this podcast in March 2013. If my math is correct, and it's not usually correct, that would make it 6 years.
Yeah, I guess so. It's crazy. I didn't realize it had been that long.
Yeah. Church Zero came out. I remember we launched the podcast. I stood at Exponential in Orlando at a table, and I was were you there? You weren't there. I was so obnoxious. People were walking by. I'm like, hey, your wife called. And I'd hand them this card, and I'd be like, she says, listen to this podcast. And it was funny, man. I just kept saying all this stupid stuff. And the draw to my booth back then, I was advertising New Breed, Church Planter Magazine, Church Zero, and I had Mr. T at my booth. And when I say I had Mr. T, I had the Mr. T doll from the 80s. And I think I had a He-Man action figure. I had all these like 80s toys on there. People were like, dude, and they're stopping by. So if you remember that all those years ago, that was me.
We met some of our longtime friends at some of the conferences that we've been to. Like, that's where we met Tyrone, White Tyrone.
Yeah.
Formerly known.
You brought the dolphins that flew around the, you know, it's amazing because we're on really good terms with Exponential. It's amazing that they even talk to us because in the early days, oh man, the stuff we did.
I know.
Remember when they're like, we had all these interviews planned, like they're all video. In fact, it's funny because I keep seeing them pop up on YouTube, our early days of Church Planter Magazine interviews. And we've got like Vanderstelt, and Hugh Halter, and Caesar, and Brad and Lance. And we got all these people we're interviewing. And we had just scheduled tons of interviews at that conference. Then we found out you can't interview here. So we're like stealing little like secret back lots to interview. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're like on the run. We're hiding out from Johnny Law conducting it because we're like, well, we got these scheduled. And at one point we ended up in the pastor's offices because we're like, well, they can't kick us out of there if Rick says it's okay.
Yep. That's where we did Derwin Gray.
Derwin Gray. That's right. That's right. And then, but you know, they just had a general rule. They were right. They didn't want a bunch of people conducting interviews all over the place. But oh man, that was hilarious.
Oh, wow.
I remember. What's that?
I said it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I offered to sell them the magazine for $5 million.
That I think is hilarious. Because
So I go to Pete. So in the very early days, they said, hey, maybe we buy the magazine and podcast and you guys run it for us. And I was talking with Todd and I said to Pete, hey, they're interested in buying it. How much should we? And I didn't know. Pete goes, tell them $5 million. So I went back and I told him $5 million.
Which to me is hilarious because I was yanking your chain.
I had no idea. So I go back and I go, yeah, Pete said, $5 million. Was
I think that's the funniest.
We didn't know how big. Hey, in our mind, it could have been Christianity Today. I didn't know, And then I told you like a year ago.
Yeah, I had no idea that you had that conversation with them.
You were teasing. You made an off the cuff remark, not knowing that I was going to go back and go, yeah, it's $5 million.
Oh my gosh!
And I told you last year, and you were laughing so hard you were crying. You did not, and I'm like, yeah, I totally did. So,
dude, if
they
would have offered me 500 back then, I probably would have taken it.
Oh man,
that's so funny. That's funny. Yeah. I don't know. I think some of our sound clips, like I still love Miyagi. Miyagi to me, when you sent that to me, I'm like doing the taco shells for dinner at my house, and I'm dying. I'm just dying. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I loved our sound bites. Still love our sound bites.
Yeah, our sound bites are good. We went through a season where you were playing that's a spicy meatball, and I was like, oh, that's a weird one. I don't know what that. And then after a while, it became funny when you would play.
Remember that from the TV commercial?
No.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
That's so funny to me. That's an 80s TV commercial.
I don't remember that, but it became really funny when you would start playing it.
That's good. Or, of course, our favorite.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
That was our favorite. You know what's funny? No joke on that one is I don't really use it now that he's died. Like it's sad. Like it was really funny when he was alive. Now it's sad.
I think when he died, we actually did play that.
We did as a
game over, man. It's game over.
Which is even funnier. Oh, you died? It's game over, bro. It's game over.
No, we did it in honor. We did it and honored him because he was rad, dude. Bill Paxton was the bomb.
Oh, he made every sci-fi movie good.
Including Weird Science, which I don't endorse you go out and watch it if you haven't.
Make sci-fi great again.
Just the scene where he's playing Chet. If you haven't seen him play Chet, just go on YouTube. Don't watch the whole movie. It's sexual and deviant. And hey, I was unsaved. I didn't know any better. But definitely YouTube Chet and watch him. And especially after he transforms into the big blob monster. Oh gosh, dude, that is classic comedy. Hey, dudes. Oh, I'm so disgusting.
Make sci-fi great again. Come on.
Yeah, and I particularly like soundbite. I like all my "Oh Brother Where Art Thou." I love those.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
if
a party of
those anymore. I don't.
Yeah, we had that one. It was really good, and because I don't listen to our podcast very often, so I went through a stage where I listened to all of them.
No, sir, I have no experience, but I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
Wedding Singer. I finally figured it out.
Oh, is that what that one's from?
Wedding Singer, yeah. Do you have any experience?
That's what you should have said to Todd. Hey, Todd, you want to buy our magazine?
Show me the money!
I think that's what I was unknowing. I didn't know, $5 million. I can't believe that. I actually brought it up to him and said, hey, man, I didn't know, so that was
Did he
funny.
laugh when you brought it up?
He did. He's actually got a pretty funny sense of humor. I mean, he's actually a pretty cool dude. So
that's funny, man. I don't even remember telling you 5 million. That's what's funnier to me because I could just see myself just spitting out something off the top of my head because I didn't remember it at all.
So ridiculous. Okay, so there was this joke that I told. I did this with one of my best friends in high school where I told him, oh yeah, Chuck Smith, because it is true that Chuck Smith used to have guys that would stand ushers that were packing heat because he would get death threats and stuff. And so there were some off-duty police officers that were there. And I mentioned to my buddy, he was actually my roommate, I said, yeah, once I gave him this big hug. And I was goofing off, and I was saying, it was right after my grandpa died. And, so I hugged him a little too long, and the guys got nervous, and they thought I was attacking Chuck. And so they jumped me and wrestled me to the ground. And next thing I knew, I had a gun pointed at my head, and it was terrifying. And I was like totally being ridiculous. It was like you with $5 million, totally ridiculous. Years later, I'm overseas. I'm a missionary, and this story gets back to me. And I call up my buddy and go, "Hey, I heard this story." I go, "You're the only one I ever said that." And he goes, "I know." He goes, "I know it's crazy, And I go, "Dude, I made that up. That was a joke." And he was homeschooled. So it's like, I don't know that explains anything, but he didn't get the sarcasm. And he's like, "Oh no, he goes, "I've told that story 1,000,000 times."
Oh no. Oh no. That's great.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to start telling that story.
Yeah. Urban legends that never were.
Yeah.
Too bad. But no, it's been fun, man. I mean, you and I, we've enjoyed this. 6 years is a long time to do something. We've wondered if we should keep doing it. Should we press on, or should we hand off? Should we give up the ghost? We've had all these discussions, as you do with anything you do, for a number of years.
Yeah. So what do you think we'll end up doing?
I'm consulting my magic 8-ball. Difficult to see.
You just don't want to say it on the podcast. I think we know what direction we're going.
We don't know yet. We don't know how things are going to shake up, but we're talking about things.
That's true.
We might have some cool plans. That's all I'm saying.
All I got to say to all of this is,
I made my money the old-fashioned way. I got run over by a Lexus.
Well, guys, here's the bottom line. If you couldn't tell by now, this episode had no redeeming values at all, or qualities. But hopefully our podcast over the last 300 and something episodes has, and you've benefited. I honestly think, Pete, when I look back, when you get down to the nitty gritty, as Nacho says, and you get into our topics. You get into our topics and you see all the stuff we've covered. To me, it's almost like a seminary education for church planners. I mean, we've covered everything from different theologies to missiology to, hermeneutics to homiletics to, it's just, we've covered counseling, mental illnesses. We've covered, it's been I would say almost beyond. I mean, we're not giving you Greek and Hebrew tools and stuff like that, but this has been like a practical ministry crash course. And it's not that crash when you've been doing something 300 episodes and, 6 years. You know what I mean?
Well, as Batman says,
the Church Planner Podcast isn't the podcast that planners deserve, but the podcast they need.
The best description that I ever heard of what we do was somebody said, "Do you remember Car Talk back in the 80s, 90s?" It was 90s as well. Remember Car Talk?
I never heard it, listened to it, watched it, whatever it was. I don't know.
It was on NPR Saturday mornings. It was a couple guys. They're mechanics.
I was watching Thundercats then, so no.
Well, I was watching The Tick back then. I still watch Saturday morning cartoons. Here I was, interim pastor of a megachurch, watching cartoons on Saturday. I was like, don't bug me on a Saturday morning, man. I'd be watching The Tick and some other cartoons. I watched Batman Beyond back then, Adventures of Batman and Robin. That was a good Saturday morning lineup, man. WB was rocking. So anyways, the reality, though, is that, what was it? Oh, Car Talk. So, yeah, I'll go out and get my bagel, and I go get in the car. And these guys would have people calling in going, "Hey, my car," and they would just talk them through it. But there was a lot of banter and a lot of chatter. And then, they're going to fix your car, man. They're going to tell you exactly what's wrong with your car and pop the hood. And I hope, if nothing else, during this time, Pete and I have been able to kind of pop the hood for you and been able to help you, kind of troubleshoot and get a little bit deeper. And we've had fun in the process as well.
So with that, this is our final episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Well, I don't know. I felt like it deserved like that kind of a cap on it.
It's not our final episode.
But you said it. I think we ought to cut it off right here. I think you set it up perfectly. Final episode. Peace. I'm out of here. I think that's what we ought to do.
But it's not our final episode. So we don't want to do that.
All right.
Okay. Well, should we just tell them honestly?
I think so.
We've talked 3 options. One is we keep going. The next option we've talked about is, do we stop it? Just cut it off at 6 years? And then the third option is, do we kind of transition to new hosts who maybe might do it better than we did? And that's kind of what we're talking about.
I almost forgot. We got an email this week.
Oh, don't forget that.
You were like, you have got to bring this up on the podcast.
It was pretty good.
So we had a dude try to join Bivo Inner Circle. And unfortunately, I had just closed it down. We're not accepting any new members in the Bivo Inner Circle. So I had to refund him his money. Man, what was his name? I got to find that email. Do you remember what it was by any chance?
Someone knocking on your door?
No, that was me.
Oh.
Here it is.
I can find
it. Here it is. So I just said, hey, man, my apologies not getting this up on the website. We're no longer taking new participants into the program. I've refunded your payment, blah, blah, blah. Sorry. So then he writes back, you're killing me, Smalls. I had high hopes for a viable income and more time for the church. Are there any plans to restart it again in the future? What about the platinum? If you do open it up again, I'm very interested. By the way, thanks for doing the podcast and magazine. I suck at reading the magazine, but I've listened to every podcast. Great info on church planning, and I love the smack talk. You two are the only people who have ever given me an asthma attack by laughing too hard, and you did it twice. Boom! Right
That's
there.
Awesome.
You leave on a high note. We got to exit the podcast right there.
That's hilarious, man. You know what? Here's the deal. You give a guy asthma attacks, not once, but twice. You've really hit podcasting gold right there.
I'm telling you, that's who else can say that? I almost killed the guy twice and didn't know it.
Oh yeah, with my words.
I almost killed the guy with my words. I made a guy laugh so hard he almost died. Not once, but twice.
That's ninja-esque right there. It's not going to be up right away, but you can look out for 2 other podcasts I'll be doing. One is called Bible Ninja, the Bible Ninja podcast, where it's in association with Through the Word, and it is going to be 8 to 9 minute chapter summaries every week of every chapter in the Bible. Actually, it's going to be a daily podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to take you probably, 30 years to get through it?
Yeah, 30 years. No, it'll be a daily podcast, 8 to 9 minutes. You can use it devotionally. If you guys ever heard my Leviticus, we used to talk about that on the podcast. I was recording it in the early days of the podcast. We're through the Word. And, I'm going through all of the Bible in association with Through the Word. So, that'll be one. The second one will be called Ministry Ninja Podcast, and it will be a podcast just about ministry stuff in general, not church planting. I think this is kind of where I'm at, Pete, is I feel like to a certain degree, I've said almost as much as I can about church planting, and we've branched out so much into ministry that there's times I'm like, I want to talk about this on this podcast, but it doesn't fit. So, as we kind of as I look to start another podcast, that podcast, again, it's Ministry Ninja. Look for it. It should be up and running by March. In fact, both of those should be live and operating by March. You can always check those out.
And I just like to say that I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, luckily, Pete, I've found a couple other people that know how to do things.
Did you find another Pete? Because
I can never say I found another Pete. Come on. There's only one Pete Mitchell.
There's probably no one else I've ever met more who needs a Pete than you.
I'm not going to, hey, leverage, baby. That's all I need to tell you. Team leadership is not a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness, and I embrace it wholeheartedly. Yeah. And here's the thing, man. Really, I am proud of this podcast. I think, Pete, what you have brought to our podcast has been phenomenal. Like, I honestly, I kind of look at it. Somebody said this to me this week. They go, no, we're friends, but he goes, I think your podcasts, they have a certain style that's very Peyton Jones. And I think maybe if it was less Peyton Jones, I have a broader audience. When I come to think of it, I think it wasn't Peyton Jones. It was Peyton Jones and Pete Mitchell, man. That combination, smack talk.
So you're saying if you had less Pete Mitchell, you'd have a broader audience. I would actually totally agree with that. I think I've been saying that pretty much since the beginning.
What he was pointing to was the flavor, and I did not create the flavor of this podcast, brother. The flavor of this podcast was largely you. And I will not be able to reproduce what really just came out of our friendship on here. And to be honest, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of just one guy who's not in ministry, one guy who is in ministry, and what that has meant to the podcast. Like that to me was a 1-2 punch combination. It's kind of like Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, right? If you had two Jerry Lewises, it wouldn't have been the same. Abbott and Costello. These team ups are kind of like you need one ministry guy and one non-ministry guy. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I'm a non-ministry guy. I think you nailed that one.
Or, there's still people out there pulling Pete to be their pastor. There was that tribe. There was that following. Pete Mitchell's my pastor. Do you remember that?
Unfortunately for them. But I think by this point, now that they've really gotten to know me, they're like, yeah, no, that was just a joke.
Yeah, no, it was a joke, but I think all of us kind of secretly hoped at one point you might actually end up in vocational ministry.
So, but let me ask you something. If you were to plant again, like I think you're planning on doing right now.
Oh, it's happening. It's on.
There's so much that needs to be done. How would you make sure that all the bookkeeping and payroll and taxes were done?
Huh. That's a good question.
It deserves a good answer.
I don't know. Since it's our last podcast, maybe. I don't know. I've been wondering that for the last 8 years. No, I'm teasing. Simplified Church, Pete.
What?
SimplifiedChurch.com.
Wait, let me write this down. SimplifiedChurch.com.
Yeah, that's right, Pete. They'll take care of all your IRS compliancy. They'll take care of all of your bookkeeping, even your tax receipts. I mean, listen, Simplified Church can do almost anything. They can cook you breakfast, and they'll put the eggs in the bacon grease if that's what you need, and they'll push it for you, baby.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
All right, well, guys, thanks for joining us today. This really isn't our last episode of the podcast because we do have sponsors. But, hey, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.